Watch this.
And if we're not mandating specific training and approaches, then the entire state of Idaho is not taking on human trafficking collectively.
Underreported and underfunded makes it tough to tackle one of the world's most common crimes. But one nonprofit is trying to fight human trafficking in Idaho and support victims, even with federal funding going away. A lot was laid out in yesterday's State of the State address, including taking another shot at opening up school choice. So what does Idaho's school leader think of it? You know, you can only be so clever with 7 letters and numbers, but some of you came up with some really good ideas that weren't good enough to land on a license plate. We have this year's version of Idaho's rejected plates. In 2023, according to the latest numbers, there were nearly 134,000 reported victims of human trafficking in the United States. A shocking number for sure. But maybe more concerning, none of those victims were listed from Idaho, at least according to the federal government. For a crime that involves tens of millions across the globe, how is it that the Gem State is untouched? Well, it's not, according to the Idaho Anti-Trafficking Coalition. With January being Human Trafficking Prevention Month, Aspen Shumpert spoke with the agency about the underreporting and underfunding in Idaho.
From forced labor to sexual exploitation, human trafficking remains one of the world's most pervasive crimes.
I know so many people who find this to be such an important topic, and it's always a big question, how do I get involved?
The Idaho Anti-Trafficking Coalition is using Human Trafficking Prevention Month to raise awareness and increase support for victims of a crime the group says is underidentified and underreported in Idaho.
In 2023, the federal data report came out, and then recognizing that Idaho had 0 federal cases for human trafficking. And that's a huge concern. 0 cases of federal cases of human trafficking doesn't mean the crime isn't here. It just means that it's a complex issue.
Jennifer Zielinski says their nonprofit organization alone served 227 victims and survivors in 2024, a nearly 25% increase from the year before.
Those numbers tell you that we're not addressing this issue enough, and that there's so many more individuals out there who just haven't been able to come forward.
The coalition relies on donations and state grants to provide resources to support victims.
All of the things that we provide here in our resource room is because of the community.
But this year, Zielinski says the group lost $237,000 in state funding, making it harder to help those who need it.
There's been a huge impact on our ability to expand, especially. And so if there is a capacity, that means that our organization is forced to turn people away.
While bringing more awareness is important, they know increasing community support is critical to the organization's survival.
This is an effort that isn't going away. It's a crime that isn't going away. And if that means that we're having to piecemeal our programs together, and we have to be diligent in expanding our efforts of receiving donors and donations, then we're going to continue to do that.
To learn more about their campaign, you can visit the coalition's website, idahoatc.org. And increasing awareness about human trafficking also means getting in front of lawmakers, Zielinski says, which is what they plan to do this Friday. Of course, Medicaid expansion is another topic that we expect to hear during the legislative session, which is going to impact organizations like Idaho Anti-Trafficking Coalition, because the survivors and victims that use their resources also use Medicaid to get services like counseling or substance abuse services. So it's kind of this full circle of they want to be a part of that conversation as well.
Well, I can only imagine being recognized, though, would get you at least some of that federal money as well. So how does that get changed? She said it was complicated, but I would think that has to be addressed, too.
Yeah, and we talked a little more about that today as well. And she said, there's a lot of logistics that need to figure out and is a complex situation that requires additional conversations.
Yeah, just reporting it and then actually being labeled as such, they're not the exact same thing. I get that. All right, thank you very much, Aspen. Well, Idaho's lawmakers wasted little time in making school choice legislation a top priority this year. Before the 68th legislative session officially began yesterday, there was a get-together to promote the push to allow for public money to pay for private school education in Idaho. Well, this time around, it would be in the form of a tax credit. And despite not seeing a draft of the bill just yet, Idaho's education leaders are weighing in on what it could be and how it might impact the state's K-12 budget. Yesterday, we heard from the Idaho Education Association, who's not really in favor of it. Today, Joe Paris spoke with the Superintendent of Public Instruction, that'd be Debbie Critchfield. So the question is, Joe, what are her concerns about the possibility of seeing this bill?
I think her concerns will echo what a lot of the fair questions are right now in terms of accountability, in terms of financial, and in terms of what are we getting in this investment. So there are a lot of good questions going on right now, and there are sometimes more questions than answers. But when you talk about the entire education budget, what the state puts towards education every year is essentially the largest line item in Idaho's budget. And moving tax dollars around through credits or whatever, it could impact how everything's done. So Superintendent Critchfield, for starters, was encouraged by the governor's State of the State address in terms of investment into public education. But the funding formula is something that she wants to examine closely and possibly change as conversations around K-12 and school choice continue. One size fits all just doesn't really hit the mark.
We want to take a portion of that public schools budget and send it out based on the needs of students in our communities. Our budget right now sends it out based on averages that look like everybody else, and we're advocating that an update to the public schools funding must include acknowledgement that our districts and charters are different, our kids are different, the needs of our classrooms are different.
Because a classroom in West Ada County might look different than Ryrie, Idaho, and the considerations for funding that would be on top of a base amount per student, it would include things like special education students, economically disadvantaged areas, gifted and talented kids, at-risk learners, other things as well, each weighted for select additional funding. And we will dig into that proposal, into the details when that's presented in its final form in the coming weeks. But back to school choice. Critchfield appreciated how Governor Little outlined what boxes need to be checked for him to sign what could be $50 million proposal for some kind of a program, likely a tax credit, but we will see. The major topic to tackle with school choice for Critchfield and other state leaders I've talked to already this week, accountability.
I'm looking at some of the elements that our public schools have. We ask that adults that are working around children have some kind of a background check. I think that that's important. We also look at assessment. There are federal and state requirements around assessing kids to make sure that that learning took place. Some will argue that, parents are making choices because the public schools don't fit their needs. And I'm not going to argue against that because parents need to make those decisions. But when we start talking about the state now becoming a player in paying for private education, I think that that raises a level of scrutiny.
And another key piece to it all is financial transparency as to where money is going, how tax dollars are being used. And, Brian, if you talk to critics in other places like Arizona, they'll hear stories, or you'll hear stories about, someone bought a trampoline, somebody bought golf lessons for their kids. So it's one of these things where when you talk to Idahoans that are skeptical, they trust parents, but when there are tax dollars involved, it needs to have a high threshold.
And it'll be interesting to see how this goes forward. Attendance is now how they fund schools. If students start ditching schools, how's that going to change what the state pays toward those schools? We'll address that again as we see that bill. Thank you very much, Joe. Well, the first few days of the legislative session, as we mentioned, usually spent by members getting their feet under them at the Capitol, getting to know the new members, new committee assignments, what's new in the cafeteria. But some of the regulars, they wasted little time in getting the ball rolling on some legislation. Hunter Funk has the details on a resolution and a memorial introduced today, and a few more things you need to know in the 411.
What this did was it effectively nullified marriage laws across over 3/5 of our country, legalizing same-sex marriage.
This would just cause a lot of misery among the people of Idaho and really reflects big government overreach into people's private lives.
Day 2 in the legislature is starting with Today in the House State Affairs Committee, Representative Heather Scott introduced a joint memorial to reject the U.S. Supreme Court's 2015 decision legalizing same-sex marriage. The memorial argues the Supreme Court case Obergefell versus Hodges, protecting same-sex couples, is a legal overreach of the state. It then asked the U.S. Supreme Court to reverse the decision and, quote, restore the natural definition of marriage, end quote. Currently, Idaho's constitution defines marriage as only between a man and a woman. The joint memorial passed out of committee unanimously, which means it'll go to the House.
We do take the time to call out the Mountain West. This should never have happened.
Next on the House State Affairs Committee calendar, Representative Barbara Ehart introduced a resolution, also known as a state-sponsored pat on the back, for the Boise State women's volleyball team for, quote, standing up for women. Or should we say against transgender women, specifically the alleged transgender volleyball player on San Jose State's team, which prompted Boise State to forfeit their in-season matches and drop out of the Mountain West tournament, which is what the resolution commends, and what the committee wants the House to commend because they passed it unanimously without any discussion. From Boise State's pat on the back to being blocked. Today, a judge said no to the university getting a new trial against Big City Coffee. Remember, back in September, the owner of Big City Coffee, Sarah Fenley, won a $4 million case over Boise State after jurors said Boise State pushed her off campus in 2020 because she put up a thin blue line sticker in support of law enforcement. Then in October, Boise State filed a motion for the judge to appeal the jury's verdict. But today, the judge denied that appeal. This isn't over yet. Boise State has other motions, which they talked about in court yesterday, without making any decisions. And that's the 401 on the 208. I'm Hunter Funk.
The season of naughty or nice may be behind us, but for some Idahoans, the time to be naughty lasts all year, at least according to what they wanted on their license plates. Oh, we're going to show you some of them, but don't worry. We have rules too. And right now you may be thinking, what kind of coded message can I slip past the sensors on the 208? Well, now's the time to give it a try. And if it passes muster, well, you might see it shared at the end of today's show. Or you can just share your thoughts on the rest of today's topics. 208-321-5614 is the number. Just don't forget your name and the hashtag, the 208. Idaho code prevents personalized license plates from referencing anything sexual, anything that be considered obscene, profane, or insulting to any race or ethnicity, nor can a license plate show contempt, prejudice, or hostility in any language. Bodily functions, fluids, intimate parts, or illegal substances, they're also not allowed. Yet last year, 459 people had vanity plates rejected for wanting to present such things. Setting aside all the tries for Haktua and professing to be a proctologist, sometimes the best part of a rejected plate is the explanation for why that person wanted it. And with that in mind, here are a few FCC-friendly Idaho tags that were turned down by the Idaho Transportation Department. Honestly, we couldn't figure out why some of these were rejected. Like, what's wrong with gay mechanic? Or how about open top? I mean, it is a convertible. Or topless for a topless Jeep. Something my friends say, too randy. This guy wanted a license plate that said a felon because, well, I'm a felon. Cow pie was kicked to the curb. Fat dad, not allowed. Hot damn, an old-time family saying, I'm guessing for a lot of people. And this one, this happens to be the name of their dog. What's wrong with damn it? Well, other than it's not a good name for a dog. This one's one of my favorites, though, and I don't know why it was rejected. Lil Gassy. The car takes little gas because, well, it's small. Some people tried to slide through some random numbers, or what they said were random numbers, but actually weren't. Like this one, 382-5968. And if you've ever dialed popcorn on an old phone to check the time, you'll know why that one was not allowed. Speaking of numbers, how about the cultural reference to marijuana? We all know that one, right? 420. They tried to get through 420-ish, which is this person's favorite time of day. 420 FUS, which means for two of us, I guess. 420, twice baked potatoes. That's actually kind of clever. And finally, this one, reefer, because, well, I keep saltwater tanks. All my fish are from the ocean. Therefore, I'm a reefer. Other people thought body parts might be a good idea on a license plate, like this one, 8008E5. They said that was the mileage when the car was purchased. Patatas, they said was just potatoes. Not gonna work. This one is good. W33N13, which they claimed was a Western Nevada school. Is it? And how about this one? Tea bags. Well, tea bags is just a British thing. Okay, so these next few we're gonna categorize as, well, nice try. Like, did you really think these were gonna get through? 0FGIVN. They're tired. They're tired of giving, they said. Okay. This one is a joke with her husband. 4NAK8U. I'm gonna let you sound that one out. Exhaust size of this truck model. Exhaust size of this truck model. It's a 5-incher. Finally, be one to choose. Really? Some people tried to appeal to sentimentality, like invoking the names of their children. Kids' names initials just happen to be Billy, Toby, Chelsea, Nico, and Betty. Not gonna work. Or this one, the initials of my children. Let me get this straight. You had 7 kids, and their initials just happen to spell this? Finally, this happens to be the middle name and the grandma's name, Hugh Jass. All right, and finally, we mentioned the explanations for why people wanted these license plates were sometimes better than the actual plates they wanted, like this one, G-Thing. They said the plate will be transferred to my 2009 Pontiac G8 GT that hasn't gotten registration yet. So in reference to it's a Jeep thing you wouldn't understand, they want it will be a G-Thing you wouldn't understand, but you wouldn't get that license plate. Also, how about Yoho? It's another way to say hi to sailors, only they spelled sailors with an E. And finally, I'm a trapper and I trap the most fur, hence Fur King. Nice try. Better luck next year. Guess there's a lot more that might come down the pike that won't get approved. So how does ITD decide what is allowed or not? The application first passes through the system to see if one already exists. Then it has to pass through the eye test. If anybody looks at it and goes, wait a second, that looks odd. Even if it doesn't raise any eyebrows, though, that's when they go to the internet. And if it's vulgar or offensive, well, you can bet it's usually found there. If you'd like to peruse the entire list of rejected vanity plates, you can do that. Just find it on our website at ktvb.com.
very frosty start to our Tuesday. We enjoyed a really pleasant afternoon. We had tons of sunshine out there. Boise officially hit 42 degrees. That will be our high temperature today. Already seeing, though, that downward slide in temps as we head closer to sunset. Twin Falls, chilly at 32 degrees. We're sitting at 29 in McCall, 21 in Sun Valley. High pressure still in control. We still have an air stagnation advisory in place through Friday, though the inversion this time around not expected to get all that strong, as we do have a system coming in Friday that will likely scour it out. This weak band of showers you see moving across central Washington could drop just a few light snow flurries on the west central mountains tomorrow. Valley County, maybe just a couple little flurries passing through. But otherwise, our Wednesday across the Treasure Valley, dry, partly sunny, and high temperatures in the upper 30s with morning lows in the mid-20s. Pretty seasonable for this point in January. That is the story for most of the Snake Plain. Upper 30s in the afternoon, mid-20s in the morning. Highs for the mountains right around 30 tomorrow with some clouds building in the higher elevations during the day. After that, rinse and repeat for Thursday. No big change. Temperatures jump to 40 on Friday. Few light snow showers possible late Friday evening, but otherwise dry for the long-term period.
We've talked about this before, how inflation is impacting the cost of food. The Consumer Price Index for meats, poultry, fish, and eggs is up 30% since the start of 2020. The Idaho Cattle Association says fires, drought, and a lack of supply across the U.S. is the reason behind the spike in beef. But what about eggs and dairy? Well, Hunter Funk is here now. So with Idaho being one of the largest drivers in the nation for dairy, and when it comes to eggs, we kind of land in the top 10 for this. What do these farmers have to say about the reason for these prices?
Yeah, for eggs, supply and demand is the issue. The index for eggs rose 8.2% in November. Now, according to the USDA, the combination of bird flu and fires at egg-producing facilities in 12 states meant the U.S. lost 40 million egg-laying chickens. Plus, the demand is up for eating eggs, so now supply and demand is the issue. As for dairy, it's the cost to get the milk processed, boxed, and in the store. It's costing the consumer more money. Now, the Farm Bureau says, don't blame the farmers for the cost.
Massive inflation that we saw after COVID-19, farm prices, the price that farmers receive for their commodity went up, but guess what? So did production costs went up, higher than what they were receiving. And now the commodity prices at the farm level, commodity prices are going down like this, and cost of production is only going down just slightly. So you can see what's happened.
And coming up at 6, we're going to dive into how much farmers actually make from selling milk, cheese, and eggs, and how they're trying to get it so farmers can finally break even. A little teaser alert, we've talked about it here and nationally. It's the Farm Bill. They're really hoping something gets passed there.
And I have to think also the price of gasoline plus the increase in wages all kind of contribute to that when it comes to production and stuff.
Yeah, cardboard, gas, everything.
Everything. All right. Thank you very much, Hunter. Let's get to your comments on this Tuesday. This one sent in from Kelly. Here we are, day 2 of the legislative session, and she says, well, that didn't take long for Heather Scott to lead Idaho back to the 1950s. Again, just getting a hearing, just a resolution, so they don't really have any teeth, not really a law, but just would like the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn Obergefell. Idaho legislators need to concentrate on bills, memorials that help rather than harm citizens, says Linda. There's a lot of people out there with that take. My daughter's license plate is 9 poos. It was random, she says, but she is a nurse in the ER, so it's appropriate for a profession. From Linda in Boise, which is great. Got a couple of these good ones. My buddy has an Idaho license plate that reads, OJ did it. He said it got passed and even sent us a picture, so it actually exists. This one might be my favorite. I have a friend who wanted her license plate to indicate the car was for skiing, but was thankful the DMV pointed out foreskin might mean something else.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.